the Board of Education's budget hearing tonight, and I'd like to make a few introductions. We would have us, with myself, my fellow council people, Fred Visconti, Mr. Robert Riley, Jane Diggs, who is on her way but stuck in traffic, Mr. Pellegrino, and we also have here tonight Dr. for Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Sal Pasquarella. We have the Director of Finance, David St. Hilaire, who should be here shortly. We also have the Assistant, Deputy Superintendent Bill Glass. We have Assistant Superintendent Mr. Diluski in the back there. We also have the Finance Director for the Board of Education, Mr. Elio Longo. We also have members of the Board of Education, Kathy Molinaro, Richard Gianelli, Robert Taversack, Eileen Alberts, Gladys Cooper. Did I miss anybody from the Board of Ed? Okay. We also have with us ex officio members, Greg Seabury, Mr. Jack Knapp, Mr. Paul Rotello, Mr. Joe Cavo, Mrs. Louise McMahon. Is there anybody that I missed? Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's 5:30 or 5:40. Yes. Today, Wednesday, April 22nd. We're in room 3C, 3rd floor, City Hall, and we'll start this meeting. I would like to start with Dr. Sal Pasquarella. If you can get us started and let us know what you're thinking.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. The schedule this evening. We have a board meeting. We moved it to 7:30, so
good, thank you.
That's our goal. We're trying to get back to that. Let me just start out by saying we're fully aware of the economic condition. That goes without saying. We all live in the community, we all live in Connecticut. We see where things are going. But I will tell you that for us, this board, who's very careful and mindful of making sure that we have a quality program, has worked for 2 years on strategically looking at a budget. This year alone, the number that we're looking at for the reduction is $6.6 million. $6.6 million of our budget is quite a bit. It represents about 5.9% of an increase. Of the 5.9% of that money, about 5.2% of it we needed just to move forward, taking this year's operation and moving forward. The 0.7% to get us to the 5.9%, which would have been about $118 million, 118.5, was to deal with curriculum restructuring, some infrastructure needs that we had for computers, and some faculty increases due to enrollment at the middle school, particularly at Rogers Park with our STEM Academy, but that's to deal with our enrollment problem. So that whole position, that whole amount of money is about $118.5 million. When we started discussing this with the city and our board, we were given a directive as a goal of looking at that time, the conditions of where we were at a few months ago, and look at a 3% increase as a goal for us to do. So we did. We looked at 3%, which then took the 118.5 and made a target of $115 million. For us to look at. So the board did, I think, our due diligence. We went through and did a number of things. We did a number of things. One of them that we did, we did the early retirement. We looked at our enrollment, and we were able to bring the budget down, that 3%, or down to $115 million, which was about $3.2 million of cuts. Let me tell you what it is, because the sense that I'm getting when I'm talking to folks, we're not understanding this. It's like, well, they can deal with it. Between last year and this year, we've lost 55 positions. Last year and this year, we've lost 55 positions in the district. So this is not something that's whimsical. This is not something that we can just do. This has been a mindful dissection of what it is that we need. So from now into this year, when the board got to 3%, The way we did that, by the way, was that, you know, we had the early retirement that we started in August. That resulted in about 72 positions. Of the 72 positions, 4 were administrators. The savings at the administrator level is not as great, because when you replace an administrator, it's pretty much almost one for one. It's just the way the standard is. But for the other 68, it's substantial. And the board was able to put it together. It was a fair deal, and that resulted in about $1.5 million that we were able to save. Going forward, a year from now, that's going to cost us, it's more of a cost avoidance of about $900,000. So each year for 5 years, we'll have $900,000. It has to go to take care of that right off the bat. In addition to that, we reduced 22 positions. And the way we reduced those positions, we went at the elementary level, get a sense of what it is that we did. 8.5 teachers are being reduced at the elementary. Math specialists, 4 classroom teachers, as a result of the ERIP program. The ERIP program retired with 68 teachers. Our goal was not to replace 10%, which is roughly 7 teachers. So when we made the first cut to get to 3%, we cut 22 positions. The last 2 weeks, we were looking at enrollment at the high school, because they just begin their class selection process. I've gone through each of the courses, all the electives, all of the programs that we were able to reduce. We looked at the elementary projections for kindergarten. That's the biggest impact that we had. And we looked at the school numbers that we feel will be coming in from 5th grade. With all of that, at the elementary, we wound up cutting 8.5 jobs, almost 9 positions at the elementary. At the middle school, we cut 2 world languages, we cut 2 tech people, we cut 2 family sciences, we cut 2 fine arts, and we cut a bilingual teacher at the middle school, resulting in 11 positions. At the high school, we are part of the 22, we had reduced 8. With the ERIP program, and it looks as though at this point with the curriculum, we were able to reduce 2 more, which is a total of 10 teachers at the high school that we're reducing. We're still trying to maintain a comprehensiveness at the high school. Class sizes are important at the K-1 level, you know that. They're going to be up. This is how we're going to do all this. And the finding argument here, with the economy the way it is, we have no idea of how many are going to transition back from parochial private to public school because of tuition. We're trying to call the private and parochial schools to give us an indication of that. So we got that's an unknown, and we'll know more about that in August. And then the other thing that we did, because you keep hearing it's all falling on the teachers, well, it really isn't. We also reduced central office cabinet, which is 3.2%, 3.2 of our position. We had an administrative reorganization with department chairman and assistants, and we reduced it. The board just approved a new design, and we were able to save $100,000. But we also cut 3 administrators, and 1 in my cabinet, and we reassigned the way we do their funding of that person's salary. So the total administrative and cabinet was 4.2 that we were able to reduce. Educational service secretarial, we reduced to half, and we didn't replace it. We took and reduced the nurse as well. Right? So, I mean, we've made all of those cuts, but that was to get to 3%. At the meeting the other night when we went from 3 to 0, and, you know, we get the picture, we get the 0. That requires another $3.4 million. So we had 3.2, 3.4. What we didn't know at the time when we made the 3% cut with the Obama bucks, the money that we may get from the stimulus package. That money comes categorically. That means it comes specifically for special programs. Elio's hard work and working with the commissioners, we've discovered that we believe that we can use about $600,000 of that money for general education to help us get to that 3.4 million that we are now deficit. That's beyond the 3%, going to 0. Going to 0 for us, by the way, means that it would be $112 million that we would have to have allocated to us. The other amount of money that we've had, the teachers renegotiated a contract. It's roughly around $700. Elio's bank, it was a teacher about $600,000 that savings from the renegotiated teachers contract. Since the 3% cut, we've been working hard with the insurance companies. We put them out to bid again. As you know, we did that 2 years ago. We went from Blue Cross to Cigna. We brought them in again. We kept working with them. We've got them down another $600,000. That's going towards the $3.4 million that we have to make up. We also are now working with the administrators. We have a meeting with them, discussing some reduction with them as well. The reorganization saved $100,000. The federal stimulus about $600,000, leaving us right now of the $6.6 million. We have a total of $5.2 million that we can go to and say this is the reduction.
What was that number?
5.2 million. But we're shortfall of about $1.4 million. So in 2 years, we lost $1 million in staffing last year. We're losing 6.2 this year. We're losing 55 positions. We're reorganizing. And that was to bring us down to what I'm saying to you right now, after all of these efforts. Now, we've written every vendor we have. We're asking them for paybacks or givebacks. We've talked to our custodians. The only other thing that we have to study right now that just developed this past week for us has been this retirement that you've offered to non-certified folks. And we know what our core mission is. The board is, they're dedicated to making sure that, we have the classroom teachers intact, and that any savings we have, that we try to look outside the classroom. We'll look at these very much. We looked at this for a retirement in terms of benefit. We didn't feel it was beneficial at the time because of the school and the requirements of cleanliness. And some of the non-cert people are special education assigned to youngsters that have to have it with their ITs have them. But we'll go through and evaluate the 22 with the goal, as the cabinet knows we met, that every position we reevaluate. We'll see if we can have some savings in there. I can tell you, it's not going to be a 1.4. The board has gotten down to 0. And if you say to me, Sal, what does it mean? It's going to mean people cut more. It's going to mean program reduction. There's no doubt. We have to do it to get there. The only possibility that you have as a town that you could consider, I think this board and our cabinet administration and kids, quite frankly, who have to live with what we do, have been very diligent in what we've done. There is a possibility there. There is some money that's being returned to the town because of a sale of a building of about $1 million, $1.3 million. If you would think through, and if that money is given back to the town when we move out into the new Roberts Avenue, it could be allocated to us. If it's allocated to us, then our shortfall, depending on the price of the building, I understand is $1 million or $1.2 million, then it'll bring down our deficit to about $300,000. And then maybe at $300,000 with the 22 that we're reducing, we can get closer without going into the classroom and reducing some more, or reducing some areas that are crucial for us for the improvement efforts that we're doing to offer quality education, or quite frankly, to offer education. You always say you want to offer quality. With $6.6 million reduction, it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. And the board's going to have to deal with the other 3%, other $1.2 million, $4 million. But I offer that to you as a consideration, as a possibility. I think the board has made all the cuts that we would expect to do. Keep being mindful of what we're trying to succeed, and that is to keep teachers in the classroom in front of kids. And this is keeping, these are, by the way, having class sizes at the max. If we have some kind of unexpected enrollment bulge with private and parochial, we have a problem. We have nowhere in this budget to move anywhere to staff them. So, and we have contractual requirements for us to meet relative to the number of sections a teacher can teach and the number of students that are allocated per unit class. And also safety in the building, so we have to be mindful of that. Before I shut up, I'll ask Elio.
Before you do that, I just want to put in the record that the Assistant Director of Finance, Dan Garrett, has joined us, and also the Chief of Staff, Wayne Shepard, who's joining us, along with Ben Chinisi, Expicio, and Tom Sadi. Okay, got everybody in there? I had him in there. He wasn't here when I put him here. I knew he'd be here, though. Okay, can we maybe
I was just going to ask if he had anything to add to that.
Yes.
The question.
I was wondering, Eli, do you want to come up and sit up front? Thank you.
Dr. Pasquarella has presented the board's budget and position in an excellent summary format. I can address perhaps questions and impart some specificity regarding line item accounts, but to begin with Dr. Pasquarella's position is that we're looking at a total of $6.6 million in total reductions between what is required to carry forward the current objectives and mission of the Board of Education, and the most recent number as released by the city, which is a flat funding at $111.9 million. We've addressed almost half of the reductions via the $3.2 million. Unfortunately, what we're faced with today is $3.4 million to close in on the 0% target. So if there's any questions by council, then people.
Mr. Ram?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Through the chair to the LEO. If I might, first of all, I'd like to preface what I have to say with that I know this is a very difficult year, and I want to thank, first of all, everyone from the Board of Ed, from the staff, Dr. Sal, Elio, and everybody for being here with us tonight. I know it's very difficult. I know that the teachers have given back to a certain degree, and that's commendable. And I know we have to be on record for that. But as I spend a lot of time trying to digest this budget, it's very difficult as it is. And I noticed at first that 6 months into the school year, ending sometime around February 28th, that we used approximately $66 million. So that was approximately the 6 months of the school year. Therefore, in retrospect, you have approximately 3.5 months left, which and you have $48 million left this coming year, this year we're operating right now. Is there any possibility there's going to be a windfall on your side, meaning that a possibility of a savings from this year? Because if you equate it out, going by your documentation, the 6 months represents 66. So it would seem to me that every 3 months is $33,000. But now you have 48,000 million left, and you will only have 3.5 months approximately of school. Is there any way you could, address that?
Well, unfortunately, I'll begin with the latter part of your question. The 66% as of the close of February 28th is in line with the theoretical expenditure, with 2/3 of the fiscal year behind you. Unfortunately, the months of July and August, although they're non-school-based months, year months, we still incur a substantial number of expenses during the July and August timeframe. Many of our summer programs, salaries for year-round employees, so it's not just tied to the teachers' salaries. Where will we be at the end of the fiscal year? It's hard to say this time, but we are I'm driving towards the balanced budget. I do not, by any means, expect or anticipate a windfall opportunity on June 30th. Just kind of a reminder to the council is that we begin each fiscal year approximately $600,000 to $700,000 in the hole because of the salary adjustment line items. These are $600,000 to $700,000 annually, which we must identify find during the fiscal year to balance our budget. So do I anticipate or expect a windfall? Absolutely not. Will we come in at budget? We must come in at budget. We know that we must come in at budget. We cannot overspend. We went into a freeze mode. We was early to mid-December. We went into a deep freeze mode. Very controlled spending ever since. only for emergency items, necessities. So we continue to maintain, we're in line against with a theoretical expenditure. That's how I like to evaluate our fiscal progress during the year. It's cyclical. To your point, Mr. Riley, it is cyclical business. It's not where you can take it and divide it by 12 months over a year and take 1/12 on a monthly basis. It is cyclical. Many of our teachers receive a final compensation per se, where they're awarded 21 payments versus a 25 or 26 month payment. Some elect to receive the payments throughout the summer months. Others elect to receive a large one-time lump sum payment as a last payment during the school year, which is the equivalent of 5 payrolls. So, although we're half mid-year of the school year, we are 2/3 into the fiscal year, and that's what we're tracking with.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Can I just ask a quick question myself? We've asked this question before, and we seem to keep getting the same answers that, you guys are still talking about it. Reductions with the administration salary raises. Have we come to any?
We're talking with them. I can't tell you, it's under, negotiations. They're willing to. I can't put a dollar sign to that at this point. They're willing to talk with them. They're not a very large group. I know they received the 5%. That was an arbitrated amount. They realize that number is high. To get an arbitrated agreement from an arbitrator at that amount, there has to be a rationale. And there was a very strong rationale that they received it. So them coming to the table, I'm very appreciative. And they've told me that as recent as this afternoon, as I talked to them again, they have a scheduled meeting with them. They're very mindful of that, and I want to do something, but I can't report back to you anything at this point other than to say they're motivated to work with us. And I believe they will in this. But I don't know what that means for the bottom line. The whole amount of money that it cost us for that was $250,000. It was $250,000. So
That would be an additional $250,000.
no, I'm saying the amount of money that it cost for that group.
The value of the contract was
$250,000.
It's much different.
That would be their full.
That's everything. So we're working with them. There's a meeting scheduled, and we're working with them, and they're working with us. I just can't share more. We're looking at other options.
Do you have any other options?
Regarding what? Regarding
cost savings?
Well, yeah, I proposed at the national, at the state level, but no one's going there. Everybody says we're in very unusual times, and we're trying to remedy these problems with usual decision-making processes. I think if you could reduce the number of days we have, which is awful to think about, it costs us $450,000 a day to run schools. The large city schools that are getting eaten up by this, because they're all in the same position as we are, they're just cutting all their programs to the bone. As a group, we're saying that maybe the state legislature ought to look at the number of required days for a year or so. By reducing that and giving us DCS, we might not have these reductions. Other than that, and all of you thinking about, what I'm trying to say to you, in 2 years, we've made 55 reductions. This isn't the board that's come into you and saying, okay, you gave us 1% last year, we didn't make cuts. We cut 15 teachers last year, we cut non-certified last year, we cut certified this year, we cut administrators this year. There's people getting 0 increases in their salary. There's unions that are taking, they've done all of those things. We've talked to the insurance folks. We got them down where we can, $2.5 million was saved in transportation. We worked with Tedesco to see if we can save anything else. We have the 22 that just came to us that we have to study to see what's there. And it's not going to be at the amount of money. When you call and you have to talk to a secretary in an elementary building, we only have one secretary, no assistants. When you go around a lot of school systems, you see an assistant principal or maybe a secretary and a clerk. Your schools have a nurse, thank God. We already reduced one. And we have one secretary to answer that phone. And if they're out a day or so, the principal knows they can't get us up. So we've done those kinds of things. So I don't know where we would get the money, other than if the money comes to fruition that's scheduled, we're going to move out of Roberts Avenue. We're ready to go. Great new building. They'll move out. The old Roberts Avenue will be given back to the university, and there's, I understand, a payment back to that. If that would come to us, that would mitigate that 1.3 after we've made all these massive, these are real, by the way, I need to use the term real cuts. These are real layoffs.
I don't believe we know if we're really gonna get that. I don't know if the state is
Well-
gonna give it to us, so we can't rely on that.
No, I guess what I'm saying to it would be, well, I would say, in talking to the university who controls it, they believe in the budget that's there, and I know that. And all I'm saying that if you're saying to me, if it's there, it's yours, that'd be great to say. Then that would give us some comfort, because then we can maybe deal with, go and find out if in fact that's true. Because if it's not true, we know which way to go. We can't enter the school year next year with an unbalanced budget. So if that's not coming our way, our board has to make a decision of reducing the other $3.4 million or $1.4 million and not rely on the $1 million. And it's not something that we can reinstitute in the middle of next year.
Just by listening to you, I just feel like, we have to worry about, we think about next year and the year after that. And if you think this year is hard, next year is going to be just as hard or harder, and maybe even the following year. So it's very difficult decision for us to make, and we're listening, and we want to try and help you guys, but it's tough. It's very tough, and it's going to get tougher.
And what I'm saying to you is that I think we know that. I think what we've demonstrated to you is that we realize that and have done that across the board. We started last year. We didn't start from the same starting point. We're starting with a reduced number. I understand it right through your eyes. We feel that and we understand that. And it was very hard for this board to make those decisions, but we did, knowing that next year may be hard. That's been my position about where do we go next year. All I'm saying is this is year to year. We didn't know we were going to get the Obama money. We didn't know we were going to get $600,000 savings on the premium. Okay, so we go into next year, and if we're able to take the million, it just allows us to do some programming, and then we need to deal with the following. If it's as bad, we'll deal with it. And that's what I can say.
I have a question through the chair. First of all, I want to apologize. I live on the west side. It took me 15 minutes to get here. And
She left before I did.
Yeah, the traffic is very bad. But if you can please bring me up to speed, please. It may take you 2 or 3 minutes. But as I'm looking at the final figure of what the mayor has funded the education department, it's $111,895. What is your figure?
111.9 or 111.
That's your fund.
That's the 5 funding amount. That's correct.
Okay. Now, are you asking for more, or are you asking for less?
Well, what we did was we were asked to reduce the 3%, and we did.
Okay.
Last week or 2 weeks ago, when you reduced this to 0, that brought us down to that amount of money, which means we have to go in the budget. We already reduced $3.2 million. We got to reduce the budget another $3.4 million, and we're working on the $3.4 million to be reduced. And to reduce down to 3.4, we have 4 areas: teacher contract at $600,000. We have the federal stimulus money at $600,000 to put towards that. We have the $700,000 of savings in insurance premium. We also have about $100,000 in reorganization for the curriculum that we have. So the subtotal is about $2 million credits. So we have about $1.4 million shortfall right now for us to look for to get to that $11 million.
Okay, so you want us to fund over and above the 111? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm asking for is the 1.4 that we're short. There's a possibility with the sale of the Roberts Avenue School back to the town, that if that $1 million were to come back to be returned to the school, we could go towards that 1.4 million. That's all.
Okay.
So in essence, yes, more, but that's how. Knowing that everybody's trained the same way, the only other area that I said that we could look at would be the 22 retirees on the non-certified that we just found out about.
Mr. Pellegrino, please.
Thank you, through the chair, to Dr. Stout. Dr. Stout, I'm sure your anxieties are real. And I know I looked through this, through the budget and told them, and my anxieties are real. Looking at a debt service increase of $700,000, 22% decreases in licenses and permits, investment declined by almost $2.5 million, and a mill rate that, at least right now, is going up. 1.4%. I think everybody is anxious. And that 1.4 million delta, what do we lose specifically on that 1.4 million?
Well, yeah, as I said to Ms. Town before, on there, it's going to be individuals, teachers, not certified, because we've already realized all the savings that we could in the transportation insurance. Those are big ones. The two biggest areas, benefits and salaries. We've gotten all we could on benefits. We cut already 29 positions with teachers and administrators. We already reduced that where we can. So if we get down to the 1.4, you're talking about individuals. You're talking about programs, or you're talking about individuals now.
Well, specifically what program?
There's a whole host of them. I mean, there's kindergarten that was talked about. We have certified people assisting with math. We'd have to relook at our middle school electives. We'd have to look at our high school electives. I mean, those are all things the board are going to have to look at and study. I mean, that's what we're doing. That's what we've been doing. It was a struggle to get down to the 29. We originally thought maybe we would reduce 20% of the people that retired. It wasn't, we couldn't do it. And not maintain the comprehensiveness of the high school, the program, because that's where you're going to wind up. You'd have to cut electives and things of that nature that I think is a horrendous mistake for us.
A follow-up question to that $1 million from Roberts Avenue. When is that supposed to come into play? Any idea?
Here's my understanding, is that when we leave, and we'll be leaving in for next school year. Actually, we'll leave before July 1st. They'll close. I understand that we'll be out, and then the city has to go to the state and close, in other words, giving it back to the university or to the state. At that point, if the money is there, that's a question, that's when it would be returned to the city, only at that point. And the new Roberts Avenue, I thought there was some talk originally, remember, I'm only here 3 years, that $1 million may have been spent for furniture and stuff, but from my understanding, the way the school was put together, there's furniture there. So there's all the furniture that we need there, so none of that needs to be for that. That'll just be money. However that was determined, I wasn't here when they made that determination. But as of July 1st, we will no longer be, or the town will no longer own that building. It will revert back to the university.
In a transaction like this, how is money transacted in terms of the timeline? Anybody have any idea?
You might.
Somebody hands you the keys to the building, and when do you get the check? Or how does that work?
I would defer to Mr. St. Hilaire, but I would believe it would be at the.
Well, I mean, there's a whole bureaucracy at the state you got to deal with, so, and it depends on their funding status and how they want to handle that. But the bottom line is that there was a contract that was signed years ago in that regard. And, how the end is determined will depends on what the final project cost is and what our needs are at that point. And that's why there's, it's not like we're going to say, here's Sal, here's a check. A determination will be made at that point on how that will be handled, and when and if we get that check. So there's, as we all know, there's uncertainty at the state, and we certainly don't want to go spend it before we have it.
I agree.
So,
thank you.
Mr. Riley?
Thank you very much. First of all, in terms of salaries, one of the things that, all due respect to you and any other administrator, one of the things that bothers me is that, the reductions in terms of the teachers accepting through their union, accepting a decrease. Many other areas were accepting a decrease. But one of the things that it does bother me that as the superintendent, and again, all due respect to you, sir, you come here and you say you're reducing, but at the same token, when we looked at your 3-year raises that you gave, even though it might only be $250,000, it sends a signal that, with all due respect, sir, it sends a signal that, that, and I don't mean to be argumentative, it just sends a signal that the top is okay to get, but reduce at the bottom. And I just hope that, I really truly, that's a comment, I hope that the administrators, as you said, sir, would come back and make it right, because it sets a bad tone between the rank and file, so to speak. And then the last comment that I'm going to make, it's more of a suggestion, if you would be so kind to listen to it. One of the big things that always in Danbury has been staff development. Now, there's something like $2,159,000 allocated for staff development. Now, staff development, as we all know, and being an administrator and being a teacher for many, many years, I know for a fact how it goes. There are, out of every 5 staff development seminars or whatever you have, you're lucky to get one that's halfway decent. The best way to go with staff development is building based. Building based meaning that you have your team leaders, you have your principal, who she should have the expertise to run a professional staff development that's going to be more useful for that building. I know that there's a certain amount that might have to be mandated by the state. I'm not going to question that. But a lot of times, all due respect to staff, they look at staff development as something that they can run away from, because a good percent of them waste their time. Building base is not, and you could conceivably save $500 to $1 million on staff development. You just have to be a little creative. If you would take a look at the alternative high school, the alternative high school has their internal staff development going on. It's ongoing, every week, ongoing. So maybe you could take a look at staff development and see that, yes, there is a way to save money, because I really think you can, and still have a program that's professional and that the teachers will enjoy going to, because now you have to drag them in by the horse for staff development in most cases, because I've gone to hundreds. If I got in heck, and I could count on probably one hand the number there were halfway decent. So building base is better, and it's a heck of a lot cheaper. Thank you.
Ms. Diggs?
I have a question to the chair. And this is for, I don't know who's going to answer this, but I've been on the education committee for about 4 years now. And I keep asking the same question each year. It has to do with workers' compensation. And I asked this question last year about workers' comp, why it was so high. And I guess I jokingly said, are teachers actually falling down the steps or what? And I said, if I see that the rate is a little higher, I'm going to ask the same question. Last year, I asked you, what exactly are you doing regarding workers' compensation? So I'm asking that question again this year. What exactly are you doing regarding the high expense of workers' compensation?
Sure, certainly. The greatest cost increase in workers' compensation is not the direct effect of additional or greater volume in claims. A couple of years ago, the Board of Education partnered with the city and established a reserve for workers' compensation claims. I've worked with Mr. St. Hilaire now for the past 2 years, at the end of each fiscal year, to fund what is required based on one of our GASB regulations, is to fund workers' compensation. Over the past 2 years, we've probably funded close to $500,000 to $600,000. My original number for next year was at $1 million. We've already reduced that $1 million by $200,000 down to $800,000. Will we in all likelihood, be positioned to fund it 3 straight years in a row? In all likelihood, no, we will not. And that is, a matter that I or we will need to address should it become of an issue of concern with our auditors. But I've had this conversation with Mr. St. Hilaire. To address the question with regards to how are we containing our costs due to actual injuries, we do work with workers' comp, and we're looking to better educate our employees on safety measures. We do find that a good number of the claims are not necessarily teacher-based claims. A good number of them are probably more of our custodial claims. So we do have period training seminars for our custodians, and we're very mindful of the number of claims. But I believe over the past 2 years we've seen either a flat trend if not a reduction in the number of claims overall. And that is reflective in a recent 0% increase in our premium costs.
Which we just received today.
So it has gone down.
Yes. I mean, the number of claims has either been flat funded or gone down. But our total cost increase is more a direct result of setting aside a fund with the city to follow one of our GASB requirements. We must have a fund to address prior year claims on an annual basis.
Okay. But
It's not an experience just for the Board of Education, it's for the city of Danbury as well.
Okay, but in terms of the actual amount, it has gone down. Is that what you're saying, or it's flat?
It's probably, yes, flat.
Okay, all right. And then the second question, I know this question came up last year as well as within your budget committee meeting back in January, regarding the students who actually come out of district. Are those individuals being taxed? Is there a tax for those individuals to pay the school system for Danbury? Let's just say if they don't live in this area, are you assessing them a fee? Is there a fee being assessed?
When it comes to our attention is that there's a non-resident student attending the school, we have a system in place which is hiring, actually, after we go through a number of procedures, verifying, and we have an individual that follows through and investigates each case. And as we discover those cases, they are then told that they have to leave immediately.
Is there a number, like hundreds or?
No. Well, not that we know. All right, I'm just, I'll be honest. But when they come to our attention, Bob is back here. May I ask you, Bob, about how many?
Last year, maybe I'd say about 8 to 10 students were asked to leave the district or to pay the tuition, which Mr. Longo's office calculates. At the high school level, it's approximately $10,000 and maybe slightly less at the elementary level. And we do have a very small number of people who choose to stay in Danbury and do pay that tuition, but that does not come to us. I believe it goes directly back to the city.
So just let me
there's only
just
8?
interrupt for a second. If you find 8, and then how long were they in the district for?
Now, the way they come to our attention is if the principal has a suspicion that the person may not be a Danbury resident, then as Pasquale indicated, we have a set of procedures in place that we use, including having this retired detective who actually goes and follows people, checks the houses at various times of the day and night. The principals are pretty good about it. They usually hear it from teachers who may pick up something in the classroom, and then they know if they have that situation, they have to notify me, and we take it from there. And then we deal with the parents and tell them that if they're not a Danbury resident, they may not, maintain their children in our schools.
My question is, when you do find out, do you have any idea of how long these children have already been in the district, in our school system? Could it have been from elementary school, reported in high school? Because I've heard of other towns and cities, when they find these people, that's breaking the law. And, you can go after these people to pay for the services that they've used. Whether it's, a year, 2 years, 3 years, or you're making it sound like you found them like within the first 3 months. But
Well,
if they've
the-
been in the system for 3 years and have used our tax, our system, we need to go after these people.
Well, to this point in time, we have not gone backwards, for example, for previous school years,
I
if they
understand
went
why
there.
we don't.
We have
Other
not,
towns
you know,
and cities do. It's important. I mean, any other questions? Mr. Bisbacki?
Thank you. Student Chair, if I may, a couple quick questions. To the doctor, or Julio, the stimulus money that's going to come down the pike sooner or later, a lot of it is devoted to special ed programs and stuff like that, which cannot be used for salary purposes. Or is that for?
We did find the Title I money, the answer is no. It's the IDA money, the special ed money, there is a formula where we have credited, we think we can use about $600,000 this year for regular education to help us to get to that 3.4 million that we told you that we should. But that's all. Any other money we use has to enhance programs.
Do you have any idea of what may be coming through the state? Is there extra money coming from the state that you know?
The only thing I do know of that was ECS money that the governor decided to get the other cities money, allocated 100% of it to all of the municipalities. And roughly for us, for Dan, about $18 million. There's a bill proposal of reducing that by about 15%. So I don't know, but that money comes directly to the town on the educational ECS money. But that's all I know comes. The only other money that could come would be competitive grants that we would have to come on. We're waiting for those RFPs to come out to us. And that'll deal with closing achievement gaps and things of that nature.
So overall, then, there may be some money coming in that could offset some of this, what we're looking
No.
at? Nothing at all?
No, that's what I'm saying. The money we know we can offset. We worked with the commissioners about $600,000 this year. The other money has to go to enhance it. Some of it will go back to private and parochial by law, so we have to allocate back to them. The remainder will have to go into our Title I schools, cannot be spent in the Title II schools, but in the non-Title schools. And we're working on how that would work. And it has to be something, understand, anything we have, we can't go beyond 2 years, because the money isn't there beyond 2 years.
And the money from Roberts Avenue, the money from Roberts Avenue, we don't really have a hand on that yet either, as to where that may or may not go.
No. I don't know.
Could I follow up with that question to the mayor on that?
We anticipate closing, our grand opening at the Roberts Avenue, Ellsworth Avenue School, will be around July 1st, on or about July 1st. So we anticipate closing with the university at some point after July 1st. I will tell you that getting the state to cut checks is rolling. Even though we have an ironclad contract, even though we passed a law when I was in the legislature to say to the university system they have to do this, it's still a real struggle to get them to cut the check, given their financial situation. I expect them to honor their agreement. They owe us some money. It's about $1.2 million. We are on the hook for any environmental remediation before we turn the school back over to the university. I talked with Antonio. There's probably going to be some to the tune of $100,000, $150,000 worth of work just to turn it back over. It's not a showstopper. So we'll realize some revenue from that. I will caution the council that what we did this year, you then move the football a little bit farther for next year, because you're not going to have that revenue next year. But on the other hand, I also recognize the challenges that the board is under, and I got to give them credit. They've really, really, really worked as hard as I've ever seen them work in this budget. This has been, I think, safe to say, we've been together 8 years. This is one of our most difficult. Sal and I have been together 3 or 4 years. So there's a potential there, but my suggestion might be to commit to maybe half of that, to bring them up to 112, 6, and David and I think we could probably make that work, and then the balance, we'll wait and see. And that's just a thought, just throw that out there.
Mr. Pellegrino?
Through the chair, Dr. Stout, setting aside the $600,000 from federal stimulus, you mentioned $18 million from the state. Do you recall last year what we got from the state?
No, let me just, educational cost savings that you get each year from the state. What the governor had decided to do was when the deficit was like $290 million to fund ECS. She took the federal stimulus money and she was allowed to spend up to 85% of that for education purposes. She spent 100% of it and spread it among all of the districts, back to last year's level of ECS. So she guaranteed every town they wouldn't get less than they did last year. And last year they might have received 17, $18 million. You've been getting each year.
Okay, so the 18 million goes back to last year.
No, well, yes. The federal stimulus dollars, governors are required to expend at least 85% of the federal stimulus dollars to support education on it. Governor Rell, during her budget address, chose to expend 100% of the federal stimulus on educational service and educational expenditures. She's being challenged, or will be challenged, by her counterparts who say to reduce it down to the minimum threshold of the 85%. And what we have today is we have 100% funding. 100% funding flat funds all municipalities at their current level for the next 2 years. So if we recapture for this year, now the ECS funds are payments made to the municipalities. All right? The concept that drives the ECS, the municipalities then return the dollars to the Board of Education. And look, at the end of the day, when you fund us at $100, $110 million, $120 million, the city books a receivable of approximately $18, $19 million annually as a cost share from the state. So put it into perspective, for every dollar expended, perhaps 84 cents is on the local taxpayer and 16 cents on a dollar is a reimbursement through state funds. The caveat for municipalities for the next 2 years is whatever your current reimbursement rate is, if the governor's budget passes with 100% funding, the best a municipality will see over the next 2 years is its current rate fixed for 2 years.
Just one follow-up. In the past, when things were looking a lot better, what kind of dollars did you get from the state?
You mean ECS money?
Yeah, so it's
You
relatively flat.
bank somewhere about 17 to 18 cents on a dollar.
Okay, so it's essentially
So it's been
remained
pegged.
stable.
She's keeping it stable.
Okay.
We're trying to.
Theoretically, with everything else, it should go up a little bit, but it hasn't. Because our costs are going up.
Well, if I may, part of our problem is that if you look at Waterbury and some of the other cities, they're getting
67
60,
cents.
70 cents.
I know that.
We're considered wealthy,
Yeah.
and we lose a lot of funding, and even though we have a greater needs. That's really problematic for a city like Danbury. We should be getting, I think, a lot more.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
Okay, I just have a question for Dan Garrett. I was hoping David Singler was here, but he
Yes.
left the building.
No, he's here.
It's coming now.
Okay, Mr. Singler, I just have a quick question. When it comes to the school health and welfare, the numbers that we have here, I believe it is the $208,575. We talked about that
Yes,
last
we
night.
did.
Did that come out of the health department's budget and moved over to?
No, that's actually amount we get reimbursed by the state, and it's for
It's
school
always been here?
projects. I'm sorry?
This has always been in?
It has, and it hasn't changed a whole lot. It's for school type of projects, and Ellie, if you could chime in on that, I'd appreciate it.
It's for the parochial schools to support the parochial schools, private schools with nursing services.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what's your?
Nursing services.
It's a reimbursement.
It's a reimbursement from the state.
Good.
Yes.
It's to support parochial students for nursing services. So parochial students come to our nursing.
No. Services we provide
At their site.
at their sites.
Yes, site.
They changed it, right? That's permitted. And
And by law, we are to provide transportation for students who attend parochial schools. We are to also provide the equivalent level of services, in this case, nursing services to students as well.
By state law?
By law, yes.
It's a little different than the school-based health care that I mentioned. All right, it's in addition to, right, Elio?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Riley?
Yes, through the chair to Elio, please. Elio, just a question, DCF outplacement, is that consistent? Is that going up?
Well, just about, Freddie, you said, I think our special education does a great job keeping our own kids. Those that are placed out are generally from DCF, but the number hasn't been so high, it's been pretty stable.
Stabilized compared to the last
Yeah,
couple of years?
the only problem we've had, there is an institution in town that was to have a transient population that no longer happened. We used to be able to charge back to their town, but that has been eliminated now for the last 3 years. So those youngsters that come in there wind up being Danbury kids. In the past, it wasn't that way, but now it is. So we wind up paying, but they're not DCF, but they're placed in a home. In Danbury. The DCF ones, they're pretty stable.
Okay, thank you. And follow up, I noticed that the substitute teacher rate has gone from $75 to $90.
Correct.
Am I correct?
Yes.
Is is it compatible to other towns and cities?
Absolutely. We found that our regional partners last year were paying either $90 to $95 per day. We just couldn't secure the number of substitutes on a daily basis at a $75 rate. We cannot attract residents from our surrounding or neighboring towns to come to Danbury when their hometowns were paying $90 to $95. We also offset it with the cost that we had for every classroom that remains vacant, per se, given that we can't cover with a substitute, then we have to put a teacher on for an extended period, where you're no longer paying a sub rate of $75 per diem. I mean, it's some quick math that $75 will be expended in a matter of 2.5 hours at the teacher's rate on it. So we offset the increase from $75 to $90 by bringing down the cost of the added periods that we were paying teachers.
And then the extended substitute teachers are about 140 if they stay long term?
If they say that's correct, yes. Then they move to I believe it's 100, and you said either 140 or 150 per day.
Dr. Sell, I have a question. This is regarding the Western Connecticut Academy of International Studies. As I look through this budget book, on every line item from last year to this year, there's an increase. Is there a reason for this increase? And are we funding some of the other towns that are sending their students here?
We started this is the third year of the school, and now we're at full capacity. That's why it's increasing. So we started with about a third the population, and we are up to 383 students, of which there's 153 from the surrounding towns, of which we get a reimbursement over for those youngsters. And the rest of those students are ours. So we went from there were 18 classrooms there. We had a third of them not filled. So when they changed the law where parents could apply to get in from outside of our town, so we have to keep a formula of about 60% of our kids, 40% from out of district, the way it's set. We're filled up, so that's why you see that as an increase. The school is filled up.
So it's filled up, and that's why I'm seeing this increase.
That's right, because some grade levels are only 2, and now there's 3, and so you're seeing all filled levels in that school. And our reimbursements have gone up because of the number of students that have gone up from the out of district. Mm-hmm. So that's why you see it that way. If you look at the first year to this year, you see that increase.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How are we actually reimbursed from the other towns?
Well, it comes through the state.
Comes through the state.
Yeah, they get a reimbursement. They, being the other towns, will get money directly to them for transportation. We have an allocation of funds from the State Department to us for the students that attend from the surrounding towns. Doesn't go through the other towns, comes right to us.
Okay.
Correct.
That is correct. We're
the numbers.
Yeah. For the magnet school, for every Danbury child registered or enrolled at the magnet school, the state reimburses at a rate of $3,000.
And those school teachers that are actually teaching at the school, those are our school teachers?
They are. They're all our staff.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all our staff. Yeah. We're reimbursed $3,000 for a Danbury child and $74.40, call it $7,500 for every sending district.
Okay. And do you think the formula is fair in terms of how much we pay versus how much the other towns have to put out?
Well, you have, I think that the new formula, if it goes through, it'll be, we won't get the 3,000 anymore, but we're going to get about 11,000 to 12,000 per student. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Of those 100, so we're going
proposed.
We stand the proposed amount, but as the mayor said, you know, with high times, they may not go there. So if they do, we stand to get more money. As it is, you know, you have a new building, and it's something that you all make the decision on. I think if you calculate in there the payment of that building over a period of time, you'll find that you've come out ahead. Quite frankly, I think it was a good deal. So, you know, at this point, what you see there, that we didn't have in the original budget, our startup fees. If we had a startup fee, that would be your only profit-making building you have in town, because we're getting reimbursement for the sending to schools. So I think it's fine at this point. It could get better. The first year, with everybody's help, with the delegation from town and the mayor, we were $1.2 million deficit. They gave us, I think, $650,000 of that to help us with the first year that they were able to, they allocated to us because they recognized that we didn't have startup money. I think we've done relatively well there.
I was wondering, Mr. Singler, do you want to add anything to it? Can you add?
Money? No.
No. Any suggestions you might have that, is there anything?
Well, and Ellie and I have been working very closely together to look for additional opportunities, and I apologize if we just had a conversation that we signed up with McGladrey as a follow-up to our audit committee to look for opportunities between the school and the city in the purchasing area as our first step to find some cost savings areas, you know, opportunities to work together. And that's going to take on a much broader scale. You know, as Elio and I continue to work together, we'll just you know, bounce ideas off each other. We're all in the same boat here, and we know that it's not going to get better overnight. It's going to take some time. So we're looking out, you know, a few years ahead. You know, we're batting down the hatches and preparing for rough weather. So.
Not to be redundant, but we said the same thing last year. Can you tell me what have you and the Board of Education gotten together and maybe combined?
Well,
can you give me some ideas of what?
Our utility contracts, which
they lock in at fuel too,
Yeah.
right?
absolutely, absolutely. Which you know, and I think in every one of our meetings that we've had so far, we were able to talk to, and Ellie and I just talked to had our conversation today regarding our fuel oil on how to close out this year and begin our next year, which will lead to. It's an accounting mumbo jumbo, but it lead to an opportunity between the school and the city. But there are several opportunities that we're just scratching the surface on, you know, and it's not something that happens overnight. I mean, an idea is great, but there's a lot of effort that goes behind it. I mean, on the city side, we're looking at every contract and every vendor. And I think in our next meeting that we're going to have, you're going to hear about one of them. Or where's Paul? But anyways, Paul from the airport. Well, he'll talk about that one. You know, and I'm sure it's happening. I know it's happening on Elias. So wherever we can find it, we're looking for it, and that's where it goes.
And Mr. Longo, do you want to?
Yes, sure.
Follow up on
that? So sometimes the opportunities exist not so much in a partnership, but in strategic planning on both sides, working with Dave and bouncing ideas back and forth. As an exercise, or as an example, healthcare, right? Given the diversified populations that are teachers versus police officers, firefighters, there's some commonality perhaps in the clerical area, but then we are similar in other areas. So bouncing some concepts back and forth that both the city and the Board of Education can realize, and I know we will realize, single-digit increases to our budget. When I joined the city of Danbury Board of Education 8 years ago, for the first 3 to 4 years, we were trending somewhere in the mid to upper teens. Obviously, we can't continue along the path of double-digit increases. We really had the insurance companies at the table several times, asked them for the hard bottom line numbers. We're positioned now to share that we're likely to lock in at somewhere between an 8 to 9% renewal for next year. Bouncing ideas back and forth with David. He's been, very valuable to me as well, sharing ideas and concepts. We'll continue along the road to shared ideas. Again, not always where the end result will be a true partnership, but somewhere along the way we can bounce around different ideas, concepts that can benefit the city as a whole.
Thank you.
And I would have to say, with everyone, it's collaborative with Antonio. There's buildings. We don't have a lot of cash, but they look well. We work together, and we sit down, we inspect, we collaborate, and that collaboration goes a long way. We talked about that we share this department, that department. Sometimes it's not possible, but we've gained a lot of insights and savings based on us working together. Just the simple thing of last year putting in a work order system or a repair system that's common now. We're able to know where we're at and how we get things fixed. People aren't coming out and somebody's got the file that was fixed 3 weeks ago. It's just a lot of things that have gone well working collaboratively. And I commend it. It's a great relationship. And we have savings that would, of course, avoidances.
I'd like to ask everyone in attendance, is there anything anybody would like to add? Everyone came out, and I appreciate everyone that came out, but I'd like to hear some input and see what you have to say back there. Mr. Sadi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to try to clarify a couple of points. I think either Mr. Longo or the superintendent mentioned a reduction in actual number of staff people over the past couple of years, if I heard it correctly, for the Board of Ed. I'm looking at the page 224 of the area of public school staffing, and it does include an increase or mention of magnet school staffing, but I don't see a decrease in staffing. I'm trying to understand that explanation with regard to the Board of Ed having reduced staff over the last couple of years, not including this particular budget, but previous budgets. Through the chair, just an explanation on that.
Last year, our reading teachers, 15 of them, we reduced them. That was about $1.5 million that we had to reduce because the funding level was dried up, so we reduced those 15. We also, last year, there were 3 administrators, coordinators. We did not, when they retired, we did not fill those positions last year. Were there any more?
Not for last year.
Not for last year.
And those are proposed to the balanced budget this year.
If I may follow up. The only reason I ask it is I'm just looking at it because there's no negative with regard to staffing year after year in the budget book. I know there was a big jump in 07 to 08 because of the magnet school, 39.55 people. And then the subsequent year, another 20 people. So just trying to reconcile that. I know some positions weren't filled, but overall there has been a staffing increase gradually over the several years, as opposed to a decrease. Just looking at this table of organization.
I thought we were talking about some teacher cuts last year, and it doesn't.
We cut 15 teachers last year. We put them in the classroom. Physically cut 15 positions. They're gone. They're not in the budget. There's $1 million savings in that area for those individuals. At the magnet school, as I said, we increased some sections because the magnet school is at capacity. Bob's sitting in the back. Bob, with enrollment, did we add any faculty last year?
Very minimal, it was maybe like a 0.2 in the physical education area, 0.4 maybe in music. They were just small increases. I believe we added a half kindergarten also last year.
And what's going to happen this year, as I said, when August comes around and if some kids start showing up from the parochial school, there's going to be an increase that even we reduced all of these and we don't know. But I mean, I can tell you that there used to be more teachers in the reading area. It is now cut in half. There's 15 people that we reduced, put them back in the classroom. We were able to save those jobs because of retirements that we went and replaced. This year, with the retirements, we're hoping to replace about 10% of them. So that's the difference. So we have to fill the others in order to make to keep the classrooms going forward.
Mr. Sadi?
Just a thought, I know we're bumping up against another ad hoc meeting that's supposed to start in a few minutes, so really just
Take your
comments.
time. Take your time.
Just segueing off what Mr. Riley had brought up, because we do have limited dollars here, and if you actually look at the trend over the last approximately 9 years, we've had about a 10 or 11% increase in the actual student population in our schools. But we've had roughly between a 35 to 40% increase in education spending over that same time frame. So, and that's not an issue as long as the dollars are being allocated appropriately. And everybody has gone back and sort of bit the bullet proverbially to try to come up with a tight budget here. But Mr. Riley mentioned two areas that have been brought up, one of them at least, the issue of administrators and cabinet salaries, which I know is minimal from the standpoint of the overall impact, but also the staff development issue, which I don't know, I wouldn't understand that because I'm not a teacher, but he as a teacher and others who are teachers here would understand whether those dollars are effective in that area. So I'd just like to underscore that maybe there can be more analysis with regard to reallocation of dollars within the amount we're giving here so that more dollars go into the actual teaching of students in order to compensate for some of the loss of funding we've had and the flat funding that we're giving the Board of Ed, at least the proposed flat funding. And I will wait to hear at subsequent meetings what the results are of these ongoing discussions with regard to some of the voluntary givebacks. There's been a consistent increase in education spending over the last several years, and obviously it's necessary to maintain a good level of education here. But we're looking to reallocate dollars appropriately. And I actually would ask that if at the actual budget meeting in May, if it would be possible for somebody, either from the Board of Ed or from the administration, to respond to Councilman Riley's comment regarding staff development dollars and how they may be utilized, at least in the short term, for offsetting cuts or impacts to the classroom. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Rotella?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. About a year ago, when skies were a little bit bluer, we being the council, approved some $500,000 for IT, replacing computers, software, those kinds of things. And now that it looks like purchasing is migrating from individual departments to some sort of collective system where the board is going to be working with the city itself. I'm expecting to see some savings in software license fees and that kind of thing. One of my questions tonight was going to be what exactly are we paying, we being the board, not the city, but the board itself paying for software licensing fees. But I'm going to wait on that until we can get some more details about this new purchasing system. But through the chair to Dr. Sal, it seems to me that if we continue cutting staff and we continue to see increases in enrollment, class sizes have got to be increasing, fairly evenly across the board. And I know that there is I think a 35 pupil limit as far as union regulations are concerned. And I'm not sure if that's the exact number, but I know there is a figure in there someplace. And what I would like to know tonight is where you think class sizes are going for September this year. Thank you.
In the contract, there are recommendations for K1 in the vicinity of 20 students. Above second and third grade, fourth grade intermediate runs to 23. And then upper level, up to middle school, up to fifth grade, 25. at the middle and high school where we're departmentalized each teacher. There's a recommended load class load of 125 students, no more than 30 in one class in there. So you could have one class of maybe 17 and one of 30. It'll balance out. But the goal is to be at 125. The band and some of the other areas are different just because of the type of classrooms they are much larger. The effective research on that, there's been a lot of research in terms of effective class sizes. It has to be, depending on the level of students that you're working with, the ability to get the word back to students. If it's a writing class, there's a lot of writing. If there are many, many students in there, the tendency to give back documents to students, correct them in social sciences and the language arts in those areas becomes limited when those classes get exceptionally high. In some of the classrooms where there's experiments for safety, you need to keep those down in the 17, 18 area because of the different stations. So, you know, it varies in terms of those numbers. What I've asked Dr. Daluski to do, who works with me there, is to take the contract, and we have used the contract, and we've staffed next year to this point based on the contract limits. And those are the limits that I just told you.
At this point, we're using those guidelines to staff, and right now our enrollment fluctuates, by the day. So it's still hard to project exactly what we're going to have for September. But right now, we do have a few classes that may be 1 or 2 students over our guideline. Once again, their guidelines are not absolute maximums. So we're going to have to keep evaluating that as we get closer to September and see how the numbers actually shake out. But we're not expecting right now any abnormally large classes, far beyond our contractual guidelines. That's how we're hoping, unless, as Dr. Pasquarella indicates, that we have a sudden influx of students from the parochial schools whose parents do not wish to, or cannot afford to pay the tuition in those schools.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Anybody else have any questions? Mr. Chinisi?
Madam Chair, thank you. I know Dr. Sal mentioned about possibly reducing the number of school days if the state legislature requires that. But in lieu of that, has there been any discussion looking to other work furlough days for administrative staff or custodial staff that requires the work of 185 days? Has there been any talk about trying to reduce that?
Yes, please.
We've been talking about many things, and that's one of the things that we're talking about. I think it'd be safe to say, I started at the beginning, everything has been on the table. We talked about many of these things, and right now it's talk and conversation. And then, some decisions will have to be made. We had all those conversations.
Madam Chairman?
Mr. Pava?
I just wanted to ask, and just remark that the early retirement that we just did, there were 22 clerical positions on the school side that took early retirement. That's salary plus benefits, because when you retire on the school side, you don't get health insurance when you retire. So salary plus benefits, you're probably looking at about $55,000, $60,000 per position. I did talk to Dr. Sal about that this morning, and my suggestion would be to do what we've done in the city, which is a target of the 22, we're only going to hire 10 back, or 12 back. Now, it all depends on where those positions fall, what the job function was, and whether or not you can figure out it. But certainly there's an opportunity, I would think, for some, before we start talking programming, athletics, extracurriculars, and things like that. Just as a suggestion. It's a conversation we had this morning.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Joe had his hand up.
No?
Well, actually, I had that question with the mayor just asked, but I had more of a statement. And I'm sitting here and I'm listening to what's being said about the being cut $3.4 million, and actually it was a request from the Board of Ed for that additional amount to the $112 million that was proposed by the mayor's office. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about the budget committee meetings that we've already had previously this week, and I'm looking at the departments that have come in across the city, and we're going to general government one shortly, and everybody there has taken a reduction. All of the city departments have taken a reduction to date, and those budget committees have come out with an approved of the mayor's proposed budget for them, and the cuts are wide-ranging, and Mr. St. Hilaire could probably speak more to the percentage of the cuts, but some of the cuts to some of the departments, police, fire, public works, health, housing, welfare, have all been substantial. And I just want the committee to be mindful that, there's departments throughout the city that are sharing the pain in all of this. And, the Board of Ed is being flat funded. And I don't think they've been asked to take a reduction in anything. They're just being flat funded. That was just my statement.
Anything else? Anybody else have any further questions? Is there anyone like to make a motion?
First of all, let me thank the Board of Education for the work that they have done in the committee tonight, Mayor. It certainly isn't an easy task for anyone involved. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to set the mayor's proposed budget of $112,103,866, and also we'd like to propose an additional $600,000 to be used to not cut any extracurricular activities stemming upon the purchase of the Roberts Avenue School by the state of Connecticut, and that money being put back into the city.
Okay, what I would recommend, I think I get your
We don't have Corporation Council here to help.
we get your legislative intent. I would suggest that we not change the bottom line. We keep the bottom line that you had mentioned in your motion, Mr. Visconti. Board of Ed understands the intentions of the council here, that once that check comes in, we'll appropriate $600,000. An additional appropriation we'll do after the closing of that particular thing, so they can do their budgeting as well, counting on that money.
That does not have to be put into this motion.
No. Well, I think you pretty much clarified the legislative intent here. Yeah. Which, Mr. Visconti, that'll require an additional motion once I get the check on the floor.
Corporation Council's going to come in.
If the check goes on the line, we'll have to figure out a time. They need to know what they're going to get from us.
You know what that money that originally, you had it in your thoughts for, right? I mean, it was already included. You didn't talk about cutting it, so I'll make sure that's all. Nobody's here?
I don't understand how we can make a motion this time, Madam Chairman, and I think we need some input from money in the
Corporation
corporation.
Council. Yeah.
We've got too much money that's here or not here.
We need Corporation Council.
He's not in the building, I know.
I just wanted to, there you go.
The mayor?
Contingent acquisition of
I could probably get him by phone.
Is that what you got? I just want to make sure that before we vote on the motion, I want to make sure Mr. Visconti made a motion to accept the mayor's proposed budget of $112,103,866. and also to appropriate $600,000 if the state funding, or the money comes from the Roberts Avenue School purchase.
That's basically what I said. I just don't know.
We need a second.
What did you say then?
But that's what you said.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
contingent upon
Right.
$600 each from the
Okay,
sale.
do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Sure.
Come on in.
The motion would be to accept the mayor's proposed budget of $112,103,866. And we also would appropriate at this time an additional $600,000 to be used to not cut any extracurricular activities, with this $600,000 stemming from the sale of the Roberts Avenue School to the state of Connecticut.
If and when we see it.
At that time, the money would be put back into the city's coffers.
We had a second?
We got a second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Jane, do you have any discussion on the motion? Mr. Riley?
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to again reiterate my thanks and for your hard work and your willingness to cooperate. And I know it sounds very much like we want more, but we just don't have it. And but I want to say this, and I may be speaking out of turn, but I know for a fact that given our esteemed mayor and given this wonderful council that we have here, I'm sure that if we go into 2010 and we're down the other end and we saw that the Board of Education, Dr. Sally, and you had a shortfall, and I'm sure that we would be more than happy to have you come back before us and so that we could try to help you through the school year. So thank you very much and congratulations.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Have a motion to adjourn?